pleasure to introduce this morning's keynote. Dr. Qing Wu is senior economist at Google, and Qing will be talking to us about his work in business intelligence, quantitative analysis, and a range of different things that he does at Google. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming Dr. Qing Wu. Good morning.
Thanks, everyone. My name is Qing, and I do work for Hal Varian, who's our chief economist. I believe he was a dean here for some time, many years ago. Yeah, it's a great man to follow. So today, my talk is really about how to leverage Google data tools and Google data for social sciences. So it's not exactly what I've been doing in Google, but I'm going to showcase a lot of interesting examples. So I'm just giving you a set of Google tools and data on the screen. And so I put the largest phrase here is Google Trends. How many people here have used Google Trends before? OK, so you guys are fairly familiar with that. I believe everybody knows about TensorFlow and Google Earth Engine. How much do you know about that? So Google Earth, it's a really powerful visual tool and also platform you can actually code and layering all these calculations and graphs over the Earth. Google Consumer Survey, how many people know about that? Not many. All right, you had to pay. That's probably why. But it's very, very powerful. You don't pay much and you can get great insights by surveying people online. Google Correlate, this is a little sort of niche product. We might deprecate it. I don't know for sure yet, but I'm going to talk about it a little bit. And Google Analytics Solutions, these are our commercial products as well. So due to privacy concerns, really the only public data that's available here is actually Google Trends. So Google Trends, this is the example Hal has been giving for years and years, but I think it's still a really fun thing to talk about. So basically, you can just go to Google Trends and type in vodka and Hanover, and you get two lines. And one is red, one is blue. You can see there's a day-of-week patterns, and this is around New Year. And you see the blue one peak just comes back a little bit ahead of the red line. So now you know right away which one was vodka, which one was Hanover. The red one must be the Hanover because that's the day after. And also you notice that the spike happened right around New Year's Eve. So this is a great sort of little chart, just really showcase exactly, validate our hypothesis about people probably gets drunk and around New Year's Day and need a recipe after. So you don't need any survey or need any other data. Just type in, you can verify that. So it's a great tool to find a lot about consumers and users and give you great insights. And also, I believe for people who are working on social science fields, you can actually, without doing any surveys, and you can also utilize this data for whatever things you're interested in. So, of course, you have people in the fields, in many different fields, such as political science, medical sciences, and economics and policy. A lot of people notice these things and start to use this data to do very interesting things. Actually, there's a book just coming out, I think this week, by Seth. And he used to be our intern, actually. He did a lot of research in the graduate school for, I think it's Harvard Economics. And this book name is Everybody Lies, How Search Tells the Truth. If you Google it, yeah, I think it's coming out in Amazon this week. It's a fairly interesting book. And he is really good at parsing all this information for social sciences, such as like political science, or voting, racial biases, sexuality, all that stuff. So it's a wonderful book if you're interested in search and how search trends can help you to find out a lot about human beings. So this particular example actually is done by one economist. I think Nikos actually is a political scientist in Greece. Basically, he was just trying to use Google Trends data to predict during the Greek referendum, what they're gonna vote for. So basically, he went to Google Trends and extract the hourly trend for the two different opinions. So in that chart, the red line is, I think, is voting for stay in the EU, and the green line is voting out. And you will see, these two lines will be hovering around each other, and in that voting day, they decisively sort of parted its own way. So in the end, the people voted to actually stay in the EU. So basically, I mean, is this a coincidence? I don't know, but at least it's correlated exactly to what happened. So he actually published a little blog article about using this hourly trend to predict, what's the referendum outcome. Just a little story that how you can use these things to predict the outcome. Actually, curiously enough, I was typing the French election results, right? Like Macron and Le Pen. Just a few days ago, I also looked at the hourly trend. You can totally tell that, how to say his name, Macron? Macron definitely, the search for him was like 3 times as Le Pen. So it seems like a no-brainer that he was going to win that election. But Trump thing, I don't know. That was off the chart. We actually had quite a lengthy debate in Google about what went wrong for all those prediction models. Yeah. This is another example used by UNDP. I think UNF, I can never pronounce their names. It's a United Nations Population Funding or something like that. So one of the analysts, so her job was actually understanding migrations. So this is basically an example how she used the keywords working in Australia to understand how people move from different countries into Australia. This particular example is about migration trends from Italy to Australia. I guess they do have ground truth data from Australia, and just the trend itself matched our search trends very, very well. So basically, she had a few other examples using these Google Trends to understand the migrations. But I think this is more like professional migrations. I don't think they probably can track the refugees that well. Well, unless you're mobility, we have mobility data, but unfortunately, we're not releasing that. Another study, this is I did for Central Disease Control in Europe. Basically, this is about HIV rate around the world in different countries, and United Nations or AIDS Foundation, they do have this data based on sort of survey or all kinds of sources. This data actually is not very reliable oftentimes, especially in Europe. So they really want to understand what's the HIV rates. So for me, all I did was I just went to Google and go to Google Trends and looked for sort of search intensity for HIV/AIDS, and this is what I got. I got this world map. The warmer color is higher HIV rates. The light one is lower ones, and the scatter chart is actually basically Google search trends intensity and versus actual rate that United Nations knows about, and you can see they're not exactly the same, but they're close to each other. But you also know that there's a lot of missing data in the UN data set as well, but at least we got something, And so once again, this is just another sort of creative usage of Google Query Trends. I had to point out, Google Query Trends is not absolute count the queries. It's actually normalized. We divided the query counts by the total queries. So it's a percentage. So we want to normalize it to reflect the intensity, not just the actual query counts itself. Because as we know, as internet penetrates and the total query counts always increases, we don't want that bias to affect the final results. Yeah. This is another example. It's fairly well known. I think in 2008 we published a paper in Nature, and since then we put together this dashboard for flu trend. The mechanism behind it is we have this basket queries for different countries and different language, and this is all correlated with symptoms of flu or dengue. And we use that trends to track the flus and dengue fever in many different parts of the country. So we call it the flu trend. We actually, the methodology also is using the CDC data as a ground truth and select the right query basket and finally to construct an index. I think this paper was influential, but in 2013, we made some mistakes because I think there are some queries in that basket. It was more about people don't necessarily have flu, but they're curious. So our index turned out to be higher than the actual. So there was a lot of discussion and to refine the model. We actually did some research on that ourselves. In the end, Google decided to deprecate it. We decided this is really not our job. And so the conclusion for us is like, we want to release this data to the public and let the other people drive this. Yeah. So it's deprecated by now, yeah. So Google Correlate. Google Correlate, basically, this is a little tool. You can type in a query and then find out what other queries are correlated with this query by time series or by geovariances. So there are two different modes here. If you look at left part, you can either correlate it by time series or you correlate it by geo. For example, in this case, you type in weight loss. We found out there's like a whole list of them correlated with this query because they share very different, same trends. They also probably share the seasonality. So this one, for example, no-brainer. A lot of it's related to weight loss, but there's also one very surprising, like a best vacation spots. So what does that mean? People try to lose weight before they go to vacation? I don't know. So here you go. I actually think it's because they share very similar seasonality, and because right after the New Year starts, everybody want to lose weight, and they're also probably looking for a vacation spot as well. I don't know, but you can come up with your own stories based on this chart. Yeah. The other thing is you can actually shift the time series a little bit and see how it's correlated with some other queries. So what happened is, like, I still use weight loss as the keyword, but in the right-hand side, I shift the time series by 3 weeks and see what queries correlate with that. The person not losing weight. So they tried 3 weeks, it didn't work out, and they were very frustrated. Right, those are just fun examples, but let's get a little more serious. In 2007, I think Hal Varian and my colleague at that time, Choi, they published a paper called Predictor Present. So basically, we want to use this Google Query Trends to nowcast our economy. We want to know how economy is performing. A lot of our indexes, even US have the best indexes, and oftentimes they come a little bit after. I think the most timely one is probably the, I think the one is initial claim. It comes every week. But a lot of other ones come like every month or every 3 months. So if you want to read the economy a little better, is that an easier way to read them ahead of time? So our goal is actually not to predict the economy. Everybody is asking us, like, can we predict the recession? 3 months down the road, I was like, no, there's no way we can do that, because Google Trends really just kind of reflect what users are doing right now. Are they consuming? Are they buying? Are they purchasing? Are they taking vacations or not? So these are information we know right away, but we don't know what the future will be like. Regardless, we can use this data because we know right away, what they're searching right now. We can use this data to nowcast to read the economy, the monetary economy. So here's just an example. So there's a lot of work that came out of this since 2007. I think there's many papers out there right now. A lot of people trying to use this data to really understand the economy a lot better. So the very first example we did was just trying to use our query trends to read or nowcast initial claims or unemployment. So basically, this chart just shows like unemployment rate, initial claims. This is official data, and like this shaded areas are recessions. Basically, during a recession, unemployment rate goes up, initial claims really shoot up as well. There's a really close relationship with that. And the question is like, can we use that to Google data to predict initial claims? So very easy thing to do first is just to, in Google Correlate, you can actually upload your own time series and find out which query trends has the closest time series pattern with that one. So here we upload the initial claims data to the Google Correlate, and Google Correlate actually get a list of keywords here from our maybe 1 million of these the queries, and to find out which ones are the closest correlated with that time series. not surprised, like most of them are very closely correlated with unemployment. You know, the Michigan, Idaho, Pennsylvania, all kinds of unemployment sort of query trends that's related to initial claims. So, you know, when people are losing job, they go to the website looking for unemployment benefits or all looking for jobs. So these categories are very closely correlated with the initial claim data. So basically, this is just laying over the initial claim time series, which is the blue line, with unemployment filing, that query trends. You see they're very closely matched. So basically, we call this whole body of the word Predictor Present. Basically, we're not saying predict to the future. You know, we really want to nowcast, you know, the economy. The framework is like, given an economic index, and then given models that's used to predict the economic index, we can throw in or add Google query trends and possibly other variables to do the prediction. So the key difference here is we have this middle box called Google query trends. It's just like a set of additional predictors to do that. The question is, you know, we have millions of queries. You know, how do we find them? So the big question here is called variable selection. You know, can we use elastic net? Can we use, you know, other Bayesian methods? In the end, in my team, we decided to use this Bayesian method called BSTS. So if you don't know what BSTS, you can Google it. It's actually our package developed by my teammate Steve Scott. He's a Bayesian statistician. So in the BSTS method, basically, it's a structural model. You decompose the time series into trend, seasonality, and also we have this regression components up there. In trends and seasonal, they all have its own sort of state change equations. Seasonality has its own equation. So basically, he does these Kalman filtering and estimate all different components using the time series itself. And the best part is the regression part, because you can throw in all the predictors and let the regression model, let the Bayesian model to select which variable is significant. So he used actually something called spike slap. If you know the Bayesian models, the spike slap method actually have a sort of this mixed sort of distribution around each variable, and then try to choose them using the sort of Markov chain MCMC method. Yeah. So here's just an example how in this model we can decompose that time series. I believe this is the initial claims. The initial claim itself is decomposed into trend and seasonality component, and also the regression component. Regression component actually is the one that's highly correlated with the query trends. That's the initial that's the unemployment filing, I believe. Yeah. Oh, actually, it's a whole set of them. Sorry. In this model, actually, we throw in probably 100 different query trends and let the model select which query is the best predictor. So in this chart, basically, this is an inclusion probability chart. The longer it is, means like that predictor is including the model 100% of chance. Then it gets less. And the white color means it's positive. The shaded color means it's negative. So not surprising, you know, unemployment office, filing for unemployment. These unemployment related queries have like highest probability to get into the model. All right, so I still have a few things to go through. I'm going to speed up a little bit. So if you've never heard about Google Consumer Survey, this is a tool we use to do the online survey. So the idea is that, you know, for users to read publisher articles, instead of going to the paywall, we ask them a few questions. They can answer the questions, and then they're able to read the article for free. But the publisher also gets paid by the people who want to do the survey, and Google takes a little cut out of it. So that's the Google Consumer Survey, and it's really fast once you put it online. We can reach a lot of people instantly. This tool has been developed since like, I think 5-6 years ago, and it's widely available right now. For example, you know, I think we did the survey before we came out with the Motorola phone. Do you remember the Motorola phone Google had? And so one of the selling point is like it's assembled in America. I think it's in Texas somewhere. And so we're curious to know, like, who really cares about phones, example, in America, right? So we did a survey, and here we go. 30% of them strongly agree is very important. 30% agree. So we got these answers. But we want to know, who are these people? Who are the people who really agree, who people don't care? So what we did was, we have this survey data, and we also know where the people come from, which region they came from. And so what happened is Google have a lot of search data. We know exactly what the search interest mix is in each part of the country. For example, if you say in San Francisco, search interest, I'm pretty sure the yoga search interest, investment, tech, are much, much higher than Oklahoma, right? So there's a lot of search interest mix varies dramatically between different parts of this country. I think this country is very heterogeneous. It's very different from some other countries I know about. So we can use this geo-variances to parse out what kind of people actually agree or disagree. And not only that, we also have some cookie information too. This DoubleClick cookies actually do some inferences about each cookie. Is male, female, what kind of age. It's a really rough approximation, but it's not too bad. So we can use that. And then we can use the geo-variances to do this kind of slap regression and find out what kind of people strongly agree with example in America. And so now you see the search interest. Like people who really care about example in America are people who like to drive Chevrolet, they like firearms, they like country music, like trucks. The negative parts are world news. They're probably Trump people, right? Actually, there are, yeah. So we actually, what we could do is we did the amplification. We use these predictors to really predict, which area is a really interesting example in America. We probably shouldn't marketing this Motorola phone to these areas. We probably shouldn't market our phone to Bay Area, because Bay Area people don't care. Look at that, yeah. So look at our amplification. In the California is like a white. Nobody seems to care about that. But look the middle, Midwest. Those areas really care about that. We really should have all the TV campaigns and billboards over there instead of here. Yeah. So this is another example. I probably don't have time to go through this, but this is like a happiness survey, and about how happy each cities or counties are. And so we actually did the same thing. We did the same kind of regression model and trying to understand these search interests in each area, how they correlate with happiness. And here you go. The top positively correlated interest with happiness. Like boats, military, health insurance, fishing, defense, outdoor, hunting. It's kind of interesting. These people are very, very happy. They drive big cars and they hunt. People on the right-hand side, some of them are not very happy. Gambling people or people who like rock music, not very happy either. Yeah, I don't know. Right-wing politics, dating, yeah. So married people with guns seem to be happy. I don't know. This is also very, very telling. So we run this model with our model, and we run this with the spike slab model, and that was just correlation. This one is actual prediction modeling. So gambling, manufacturing, the most negative predictors. So that's also probably related to what this Trump policy is about, right? Made in America first. So manufacturing people are not very happy in the States, that they're angry. This study is done quite a while ago, okay? Anyway, very last example is actually how to use Google Query Trends to do some of the causal inferences. So I have two examples here. I think somebody was asking me, does bad weather make people depressed? Yes, it's probably true. If you just look at query trends, this color is not very well shaded, but people further north seem to search for depression quite a little more than the people in the south. There's also seasonality. Like winter, there's a lot more depression-related queries than summer. Well, yeah. So, but I actually want to know, if the weather just changed, from Monday to next Monday, if the weather changed dramatically, do I get more depressed? In San Francisco, I do. So all I do here is actually I just take queries from Washington, D.C., and I take all the depression-related queries. I just do a week-over-week variance. So basically, I have temperature from this week Monday versus the week last Monday. So during a week time frame, weather probably changed quite a bit, and I want to see the query trends, how they changed week over week, and I do a scatter plot between January all to the December, and also I color them differently between weekdays and weekends. The red color is actually weekend. Basically, the most dramatic one I've seen so far is in June. If in the weekend, if the weather got colder, actually the query really goes up. If it gets warmer, the query really comes down. So basically, in summers or in fall, when the weather changed dramatically colder, people just get a little more depressed. There's more depression-related queries. Yeah. And this is the regression model. You can do the variable selection as well. Very last example, actually, somebody asked me, actually, I think a while ago, like, does Uber makes people use taxis less? No-brainer, probably it's true. But I really want to find out, does our query tell the same story, right? Here, what you see here is like I typed in Uber, taxi, Lyft, these like 3 keywords. You see the taxi queries plateaued and it's coming down, and the Uber query really went up. Lyft is a little slower. So, but it turned out Uber did not roll out, each market simultaneously, right? There's this different time. They rolled out San Francisco first, and then slowly spread out the entire country. So there's this timing difference. So maybe, if you're an econometrician, this is a natural instrument, right? You can use this time difference probably to parse out some of the impact on Uber. So what I'm showing here is time series. So basically a lot of causal inference here is using time series. What you see here is like these are query trends for taxi for different DMAs. We have 220 DMAs, right? These are metros, and Uber rolled out in a different metro, different timing. And what you see here, like a green color line, is taxi query before the rollout of Uber. The blue line is the after. Basically, what I'm trying to do here is why can't we use this sort of control the natural experiments to do counterfactual prediction and to try and understand the effect. So what you see here, the red line, which was not easy to see here, red line is the counterfactual prediction we use the control group to come up with. And then finally, we do the impact analysis. This is a whole tool I developed actually in Google. I'm actually going to present it in a month in another conference. I believe it's pretty new. I've never seen anybody doing this before. It has a synthetic control sort of flavor. Basically, we're trying to do a counterfactual prediction, use the control group, and then we also do a placebo set test to adjust the bias. And finally, we come up with the impact sort of validation. Yeah. I don't have enough time to go into details. It's actually a pretty complicated method. In the end, so this is the result I got. So basically what that means is like the red line is the impact. So the data is pretty noisy, but at least what I find out is like for those DMAs that's launched in 2012, when Uber is still not brand name yet, it's a very small name at that moment, we actually don't see much impact for taxi queries. We have some 9 markets fall into 2020 year window. But for those ones who were launched in 2014, we definitely see an impact. You see the red lines going down, which means like we are losing queries, down to almost 20, 10, 15% after about 50 weeks. So this method can actually really validate impact very well. All this, the impact here numbers makes perfect sense to me, and we actually test out this method for many other use cases, and that work pretty well. Basically, it's a causal inference framework to do time series, also for very, very noisy time series as well. Anyway, so these are just my showcases. So I'm showing that just because Google Query Trends is the only data publicly available for Google, and you can access through API if you're academia. If in industry, so far we are not providing the API yet. And so you can creatively use this data set to do many different things. The big challenge here is like what queries is the right thing, and there's a lot of variable selection question. And also the biggest question is correlation is not causation, so you might want to creatively find many different ways to really validate, it's a causal, it's not just correlation itself. Yeah. Anyway, this is my talk. I think I have 5 minutes for Q&A. Yeah. Thank you.
So I'm curious how you decide if a particular query is the query you're looking for. So different tenses, different word orders, and things like that. Do you lump those in and consider them the same query, and why? Because it seems like there's a pro or con to doing that.
Yeah, it's really art. We actually have some internal methodology to expand the queries using many different sort of methods, like how this query and that query is correlated. So right now, in Google Query Trends, we are using kind of phrase match. So what you get is any query with those 2 words inside, it will show up. But you can subtract, you can add, it's up to you for manual sort of manipulation, yeah.
Right now, I think the majority of this is for English. I was just wondering for Chinese. I mean, the reason I bring it up is like Google is not available in China, right? Do you have any mechanism to compensate that, or? No,
we don't have. The Great Wall already blocked it.
Okay, but would your Chinese part? But you do Google. You can use Chinese to search, of course, even for people like us in the States,
but we don't have the data, right?
But you have, just the overseas Chinese data?
Yeah, we do have overseas Chinese data, yes.
Is that, I don't know if anybody, contemplate that, would that be, statistically significant?
The sample size might be a little too small. Yeah, because we have a very strict threshold for privacy reason. These queries had to appear so many times per day in order for us to show up. So if you go to Google Query Trends, a lot of long tails, you won't see any data at all. Internally, we do have the data. We just don't expose that yet.
Got it. Thank you.
Hi, I had a question about your search intensity graph.
Yeah.
I was wondering if you could unpack the axes a little bit and talk about how you're normalizing the data, if you're using like log normal to show the data. If you have some time to unpack that, I'm really interested.
Yeah, just go to if you go to Google Trends, there's a help menu, drill down. I think there's a detailed explanation about the normalization. It's actually, I believe, normalized the total queries. And then not only that, and just by geography, or also by time. And then furthermore, I believe in the chart itself, every chart is normalized to the 1. Yeah.
Hi, thanks for the talk. I have a longer question, but I would ask a short version.
Yeah.
How much does Google hold itself responsible for research integrity? It looks like if you give out tools like Google Trends, and I believe that a lot of folks don't really have deep knowledge in causal inference. How do you prevent people from fishing for correlation? Because I feel that
I don't think
it's
that's
a Pandora's box.
That's not our job, right? So whoever wants, we just release the data in the public. Partially, that's the logic we did for Google flu trend. We decided to deprecate that. We just release the data to the world and let them play with it. So I believe journals and all these reviewers, they can sort of validate these models are correct or not. Causation, correlation, this is really hard question, right? It varies case by case, yeah.
Just a couple more right at the back there. Thank you.
Hi, nice talk. You mentioned you use about Bayesian structure time series. I'm curious why you choose this model, because Bayesian really kind of have a prior and a posterior relationship. Yeah.
Number one, we have a very good Bayesian team in Google, and I think there's a lot of in our model actually it's not super big, so Bayesian model actually turned out to be okay for it. For the very, very huge models, actually, I personally believe you can use other machine learning methods. It's probably faster. Like even less than that, it's a lot faster than the Bayesian model we have here. But for the particular size of problem we're working on, we have hundreds of predictors. And also Bayesian model is, for me, is easier to interpret it, right? So you actually see the inclusion probability of each predictor. Each predictor, you know, this would be 100% in the model, this would be like 2%. So, and in the final prediction, it's based on the average of all these models together, right? So, and they give you a really good confidence interval too. So that's, I think whether you're going to use a Bayesian model or not depends on your problem size and also the situation you're in. And this particular package has really good way to evaluate the seasonality and the trend. If you're interested, you know, read a little more into BSTS. Yeah. Go ahead.
This is more of a consumer question than a data scientist question, but what other cool things do you predict from cookies?
Cookies?
Yeah, from our cookies. Like you said you were using our cookies you can predict like gender and...
Oh, you mean like how we do the sort of demographic inferences for the cookies?
Yeah.
I'm not sure I can talk about it, but anyway, I think you actually can go to your account setting and find out your Gmail Gaia ID cookie. Who do you think you can think about, you know, how accurate it is? Does anybody know the account setting? You can find out what Google thinks you are, right? You can delete that too if you want to. Yeah. Well, just we use signals, right? Yeah, to figure out. I mean, it's not like a Facebook you volunteer. Yeah.
All right. Think about it. Okay. Jing, thanks so much.
No problem. Thank you.